Hi, Analisa Six here with the Sober Curator and the Lady of Leisure to give you the 2023 October horoscope for the zodiac sign of Aries for sun and rising placements. Happy October. I think today is the 5th that I am recording this. Let's actually check. I don't even know what the date is right now. Yeah, it's October 5th, Thursday, October 5th. And I unfortunately was not able to do September horoscopes, but I'm here now. I took September off. It was a crazy month. And yeah, I'm excited to give you your horoscope, Aries. Let's dive right in. So we are in Libra season, which Libra is the sign that is the opposite of Aries. So every single sign of the zodiac has an opposite, a polarity. I've talked about this in past videos, so I'm sure if you're watching this, you're probably aware of that already. But Aries is cardinal fire and Libra is cardinal air. And so the two make opposites to each other. And so one of the things that you might kind of be reflecting on is your relationship to this time of year. So Aries rules the springtime, and that's, kind of more of like a birth energy, right? Like the flowers are blooming, it's, Aries season is kind of looked at as the actual new year in many cultures, and including astrology, like that's the astrological new year. And Libra is when we have the autumn equinox. So we have the spring equinox marking the start of the year, the start of spring in Aries season. And then in Libra season, we have the opposite, which is the, entry into fall and autumn. And we have the Celtic holiday Mabon that symbolizes that. So it's a very different energy. It's the polar opposite, where we start to feel like, it's getting colder, there's less daylight, things are starting to turn, the leaves are starting to turn, things are essentially starting to die or go dormant for the winter. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm located in California, so that's what's going on for us here. And so, one of the things as an Aries person that you can reflect on for this time of year is how that is impacting you. What's your relationship to autumn? What's your relationship to fall? Do you have a good relationship to the frequency of Libra, the frequency of cardinal air? Aries, is this birth of life, and Libra, we don't really associate it with death. Scorpio is the sign that's associated with death, but we do associate Libra with maybe polarity and the balancing of things. And so, Aries being very kind of like active and initiatory, Libra tends to be more responsive and passive and less, it's not Martian, it's not as aggressive. It's more like take a back seat and kind of allow things to happen or watch things happen. It's still cardinal energy though, so there still is an initiatory active part of it, but it has more to do with the other versus the self, where Aries has a lot to do with how we're initiating the self, where Libra has more to do with how we're responding or initiating energy to the other, and the other meaning another person or an outside situation. Usually that, has to do with another person, because Libra is relational and rules the area of the chart that has to do with relationships. So with that said, the horoscope for Aries, a lot of things are in Libra right now. We have Pallas Athena in Libra, the Sun in Libra, Mars in Libra, and the South Node also in Libra. Vertex is also in Libra right now. So we have a lot of energy in the cardinal air sign, and that's opposite of Aries. So everything's pulling you out of kind of what you're comfortable in and pulling you to the polarity. And it's in the area of the horoscope chart that does have to do with relationships. So relationship is highlighted for Aries. Partnership is highlighted, your relationship to partnership for yourself. Like, what does relationship and partnership mean to you? Chiron is still in Aries. Chiron's been in Aries for a long time, so it's hard to really talk about it in a horoscope sometimes because it's more meaningful probably on an individual basis. But because Chiron is in opposition to a lot of this this Libra energy, it does play a part, because there's, the wounded healer is kind of residing in the area with the North Node around identity. So there's this story happening for Aries of who am I? Who am I on my own? Who am I when it comes to the way that I'm autonomous in my life? And then how does that translate into my relationships and how I operate within my relationships? My bulldog is very distracting. He just did this whole kind of like walk through this part of the room, went under a table, then came up, jumped up here, jumped over to me, and now he's just licking my foot. My bulldog's obsessed with my feet, so he tends to lick my feet a lot, but I feel like the sounds might be kind of gross on here. I don't know if we need those noises in the Aries horoscope video. They're kind of nasty. You want to say hi? Do you want to say hi on the video? Yes. You're my little Aquarius boy with a Taurus moon. He says, please stop. Please don't do that. He's been having allergies. He's got some skin allergies going on that we're trying to deal with. Oh my gosh, he's just going to keep licking me. So that's a big theme for Aries. The other thing that's happening too is that Mars is the ruler of Aries and is in the sign of Libra, which is the sign that it's, not most comfortable in. It's considered to be in its detriment. And Mars in Libra, some of the shadow qualities of this placement are, there's a lot of passive aggressive energy that can happen, or it can raise conflict in relationships. When we have Mars passing through here, when we have Pallas Athena passing through here, we could be experiencing conflict or tension in our relationships. And so there's also kind of this lesson or message oftentimes with Mars in Libra, where how do we have healthy conflict with another person and not kind of lean into these tit for tat dynamics where we're going, well, you said this, so then that justifies me doing this, or, well, everything has to be kind of like this balancing or evening of scales, right? Like, well, you did this, so now I'm going to do this. And I think that that's one of the things about things being fair, that sometimes just because somebody else did something, like just because it would be fair, like if somebody hurt you, sure, it's fair for you to hurt them back. Doesn't mean that it's right. Doesn't mean that that's an okay thing to do, right? So it's like, oh, this, it's that thing of like, oh, if somebody hits you, should you hit them back? Like there's parents that raise their kids that way. Well, if they hit you, you should hit them harder. That's not necessarily a good lesson to be teaching yourself or others or a child, right? Like you kind of want to find a way to look at a situation in more of an observant way rather than a reactive way, or in a tit for tat way, where it's like, just because somebody else did something doesn't mean you should also do that thing, or that it's the right thing to do. And so Mars and Libra can kind of be in that position of having to navigate that, right? Of like, what is the best road to having a constructive resolution, not just a reactive tit for tat, I'm going to get them the way that they got me kind of dynamic in a partnership. And partnership can mean more than just a romantic relationship. It can be a friend, it can be a coworker, it can be a business partner, it could be a family member, even if you have a really close relationship with a family member. This area of the chart doesn't rule family, but if you have a really close, intimate relationship with a family member, that could definitely be a theme. Also, at the beginning of the month, Mars is going to be conjunct the South Node in this area. And so we might also be learning a lot of valuable lessons through our relationships, especially having Vertex entering Libra at the beginning as well. Vertex is a karmic point that often has to do with us learning lessons through other people. And then when it's already in a placement that has to do with another person or other people, we are having something mirrored back to us that we need to work through in ourselves. So, I know, like, I was raised by my mom, who's very philosophical and has studied a lot of things. And she always taught me that, people in our lives can mirror things back to us about ourselves. And I think that there's a balance with that. I think that, Libra, there's a balance with that. There's definitely, ways that I think we attract situations or people into our life because we see something in that situation or person that we're drawn to. And maybe it's a quality that we ourselves possess, or maybe it's a quality that we ourselves lack, but we admire and want in ourselves. And so we're drawn to somebody that maybe possesses those qualities that we don't have. That's something that's really common when I'm doing astrology readings for couples. Oftentimes what one person is lacking in their chart, the other person in the relationship will have. And there's a lot of opposites attract kind of energy in a lot of relationship readings I've done. There's also, the people that are attracted to kind of their carbon copies, right? Where it's like, oh, we have so much in common. We're so similar in so many ways. That can be a thing too. And so there's a lot to learn through other people about our own reactions the things that we're drawn to, the things that repulse us. You know, are we repulsed by something in somebody else because that's a part of ourselves that we're repulsed by? And then how do we work through that? How do we unpack that? If we're having conflict with somebody or a partner, a romantic partner, this is also a time to kind of really focus on what the steps are towards healing and resolution. Mars is going to be passing through this area until October 11th. And then October 12th, it's going to be moving into Scorpio. And it's going to be entering the area of the Aries chart that has to do with shared resources. So shared assets. If you have assets that you share with family members or a marital partner, like a, you know, husband, wife, spouse, that comes up. This is also the area that has to do with inheritance and death. And, you know, Mars in traditional astrology is considered to be, you know, malefic. So it's not an easy planet wherever it's passing through. The positives of Mars is that it brings a lot of energy to wherever that is. So if there's a lot of action oriented things that you need to get done or, you know, take initiative on, this is a time where there's a lot of energy highlighting those themes. This is also the area that represents marriage. And when Mars is passing through this area of somebody's chart, there are problems in a marriage sometimes, or problems with finances in a marriage, with overshared assets. There can also be conflict with inheritance regarding family members, estates, things like that. Also loans, banking, investments, taxes, things like that can have some rocky kind of things happen, but you know, it's an opportunity for you to figure out kind of what needs to be done and take action and hopefully make progress as well with any of those things that come up. And Mars is going to be in Scorpio for the rest of October after that. Mars is also the ruler of Aries and the ruler of Scorpio. It's your ruling planet. And so, you know, it's in a place that it likes to be in, that it does really well in. This area of the chart also rules sex. And when Mars is passing through this area, our sex drive might be ignited. We might want more sex. We might want to explore our sexuality more. That can also be a positive with Mars passing through this area. So there's a lot, you know, that could be turbulent around this, but there's also a lot to be gained. This is also the area that rules the occult. So if the occult and esoteric study is something that you want to immerse yourself more in, you know, because it's Mars, you want to be mindful with what you allow yourself to be attracted to, but also there's, you know, the veil is thin in October towards the end of the month. So there's also a lot of opportunity for connecting to that other side, the other world. All right, let's see what else is going on. So at the beginning of October, we also are going to have Mercury in its home sign of Virgo, but not for very long. It's only in Virgo up until today, actually. And so then by today, it moves into Libra, and it does enter that area of the chart that has to do with partnership. And this is a great opportunity when we're talking about how there's kind of maybe some conflict with partnership or relational dynamics and kind of a need to suss that out and figure it out, work through it. Mercury is here to help work that out. Again, in Libra, there tends to be kind of this need for things to be fair, you know, things to feel balanced. And sometimes what feels fair to us isn't always what feels fair to somebody else. So there's also kind of that understanding that listening to somebody else's perspective or somebody else's side is just as important as somebody listening to our side or hearing our perspective. I really wish that people knew what gaslighting was more prominently when I was younger, because I feel like it's such a known thing now. And I remember so many times when I was feeling a certain way and I would be vulnerable, you know, with somebody and say like, this is how I'm feeling in this situation, or this is how the situation is making me feel. And I would just be told straight up that I was wrong. And I didn't know what gaslighting was. I wasn't able to advocate for myself and say, you're gaslighting me. But I knew it wasn't, in my gut, even as a really young person, I knew that it wasn't right to tell somebody that their feeling about something was wrong, even if they misunderstood a situation, even if somebody's intention wasn't that, or you're misunderstanding a situation. It's not ethical to tell somebody that the way they're feeling is wrong. And that's gaslighting. And so when you're in a situation or a conflict with somebody, while it might not have been your intention or you didn't mean to cause that harm or cause somebody to feel a certain way, you still have to validate. I mean, you don't have to, but it's still good for you to validate that that person's feeling that way in that situation, and listen and hear them out, even if it wasn't your intention. And you can explain, you can apologize and then explain what your intention was. But I think from all of the things I've learned over the years in therapy and just studying different things, that's a really important part of a communication dynamic, is for both people to feel validated, heard, and regardless of intention, to recognize that something made somebody feel a certain way, even if it's not something that you wanted to cause. And that goes both ways. So if you're in a relationship dynamic with someone where you're trying to get that validation or be heard and you're not getting that respect back, that might be a red flag to you, where you're like, okay, that's gaslighting. I don't feel safe in this relationship dynamic, so I'm going to leave or create different boundaries with that. And Mercury is going to be in Libra up until the 22nd. And then it's going to enter Scorpio. And Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury in Libra really wants peace and resolution and harmony, and wants to maybe experience things in more of a detached and less emotional way, and more just kind of like, let's work through this, let's talk through this, let's have it feel good. Mercury in Scorpio is very much not like that. Mercury in Scorpio is more emotion based and reactive. And, we're going to have Mercury and Mars in Scorpio at the same time, by the 22nd. And so there's a lot more opportunity for, if you didn't have constructive conversations for that first part of October with the said people or person that you were trying to work things out with, things are going to get heated, and the conflict is probably going to get more extreme or more intense and more reactive. Mercury and Scorpio can say things sometimes in the heat of the moment that it regrets later. So this is definitely be cautious with your words, because they can cause harm. The whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. In theory, that would be nice, but I don't think that's true. I think words, in esoteric thought, we believe words are spells. We believe words have a lot of power. And so, Mercury and Scorpio, words have a lot of power. And if we are not cautious and we don't take responsibility for the power that our words have, we can definitely cause real hurt and damage. There's things that have been said to me by people that I can't come back from. I'm like, I can forgive, but I can't forget that was okay for you to say to me. So, there's a lot of opportunity for us to say the wrong thing. There's also a lot of, with Mercury and Scorpio, especially with Mars and Mercury and Scorpio, there's a lot of opportunity for jealousy, envy, a need for revenge, or feeling spiteful. Those are the shadow qualities of Scorpio. And it's something that we need to be really cautious of if we're getting triggered in that way, and kind of doing that deeper work as to why are we feeling that way. On the flip side too, because this is passing through a relational part of the chart that has to do with other people, we could also find ourselves on the receiving end of that and having to navigate, how do I work through being on the receiving end of this energy. On a more positive note, because that's very kind of low vibe, stuff, Mercury in Scorpio is a great investigative energy. It's also really powerful for occult and psychic, kind of endeavors. So if you are drawn to, channeling or tarot or the paranormal, or, any kind of experiences like that, that is elevated and could be really fun, could be a positive way to kind of lean into the season of death and, honor those who have passed over, do rituals that are about the other side and kind of connecting to the paranormal in a positive way. Mexicans, like I'm Mexican, and Dia de los Muertos is the day that I got married, and it's a holiday that I really love. I think Mexicans are awesome at celebrating death and making it into something really positive and really romantic and beautiful. And so I think that there's an opportunity with Mercury and Mars and Scorpio to really lean into those festivities and, Samhain, Halloween. There's so much good energy around making this kind of time that feel like all those kinds of spooky vibes can feel really positive and uplifting, and a nice way to kind of channel some of that energy. But, on the flip side, there's still all this room for conflict. So you might be trying to have festivities and connect with people, and there could still be some conflict there. October is a pretty intense month. Astrologically, I'm not like, after how intense the summer was with Venus and Mercury retrograde, which was a lot. I was hoping that we would get a little bit of a like, in October, and it definitely doesn't feel that way. It feels like there's still quite a bit of drama and room for conflict. And yeah, there's like kind of a continuation, right? So whatever you went through with Venus retrograde in Leo, there's kind of a continuation of some of that and having to figure that out. So we're not out of the woods, really. The outer planets are still doing their thing. We have Pluto stationing direct in October. I cover the outer planets in the astrology forecast, which is the first video out of this playlist. And so if you want a more in-depth synopsis on each transit that's happening every day of the week and the outer planet transits, I recommend watching that. The last thing I'm going to talk about for you, Aries, is just where the moons are falling for you this October. So we have a new moon solar eclipse in Libra at 21 degrees on October 14th. And that is happening, opposite Aries. And it's happening in the area of the chart that does have to do with partnership and relationship. New moons are a great time for setting intentions. Solar eclipses hold a lot of energy. It's like a super, elevated energy. And so it's said that whatever kind of manifests around this time is something that we're going to be feeling for about 6 months. And so, a lot of astrologers will tell you not to set intentions or do any manifestation and kind of just let things flow. I'm not of that ilk. I think you can still set intentions, but follow your gut. It's up to you. But this does have to do with relationships for you, romantic, best friends, business partners. So if you're having any problems and you want to set intentions around, making things more harmonious, healing things, or maybe even moving out of a relationship that isn't serving you anymore, this is a powerful time to kind of put that into motion. And a lot of times with eclipses, those things get put into motion whether we intend for it to. It's kind of like if the universe, which I believe is neutral, but if kind of things align in a way that push us towards something else, a lot of times it just feels like it's not even a choice, it's just happening, right? So sometimes eclipses can feel like that, like things are moving us into a new territory, whether we think we're ready for it or not. The other moon that we have going on in October is the full moon lunar eclipse happening at 5 degrees of Taurus, and that's happening on October 28th. That one is going to be happening in the area of the chart that has to do with your finances. And so again, it's said to be cautious about the energy that we really put forth, but full moons are a good time to release and let go. And because this is happening in the area that has to do with your self-worth and how you are materially driven, the way that you build stability for yourself, Uranus and Jupiter are in this area as well right now as outer planets. This is a really positive time for you to maybe reflect on your relationship to stability, self-worth, security, your money, and also what you value about your material world, what you value about life. Those are things that are going to come up for you during the end of the month in October. All right, Aries, I think that's a good little synopsis on October, and I hope that you have a great October despite some of the bumps in the road that we're all going to be feeling. I will see you all next month. You can find me at theladyofleisure.com or thesobercurator.com. Feel free to hit the like or subscribe button if you want to get notifications on when I post these, and I will see you all next month.